You're listening to a podcast appearing on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
This is the weekly Firecast, episode 22. Interview with Madison Chocolatiers West, plus I bust several meat and grilling myths.
Strap yourselves in. It's time for the weekly Firecast. This is the podcast for all foodies, those who love food that is cooked over a fire or feels like fire in your mouth. If you love spice, smoke, sauce, and all things savory, this is the show for you. And now, here's your host, chili head and barbecuer, Scott Roberts.
And welcome, everybody, to the latest installment of the weekly Firecast. My name is Scott Roberts. I'm a blogger, a writer, and a podcaster. My main website is found at scottrobertsweb.com. I'm proud to say that this is the only podcast currently on the internet that focuses on hot sauce and fiery foods and barbecue and chili peppers and all the foods that I love and crave. Like the intro says, anything that's cooked over fire or feels like fire in your mouth. I cover the whole gamut in this. Currently, it's winter in North America. A lot less people are barbecuing and grilling. Rest assured, I will get to a lot of that in the coming spring months. But that does not mean that I will not have barbecue and grilling content. As a matter of fact, later in this very episode, I will bust certain meat and grilling myths. So be sure to listen to that later. Also in this episode, I interview Madison Chocolatiers West. That company is comprised of Chef Ricky Sanders and Renee Rohrbach. And there are a couple of the brightest new stars in the chocolate and confectionery world, as well as the chili head world itself, too. And I'm always looking for people to find new ways of incorporating chili peppers and spice into different kinds of food. And they definitely do it. Now, chocolate and chilies is by no means anything new. It's been around for years and years. But just some of the flavor combinations that Ricky and Renee are able to do through Madison Chocolatiers West, you have to taste them to believe them. Of course, we'll talk more about them in the interview later. And for the review subject of this episode, I am going to cover Kelly's Jelly's Habanero Pepper Jelly. And before we get to those segments, I wanted to go through a few housekeeping notes. First of all, this episode is going to be released on January 25th, 2013. And a big event this weekend is Zest Fest down in Irving, Texas. Now, if you're listening to this podcast episode and are anywhere North Texas, you owe it to yourself to make the journey in at least one of the days. Now, I encourage you to go back and listen to the previous episode, episode 21, where I interview Greg Bagarozzi, who is the current owner and producer of Zest Fest. He gives all the important details on this fun, fiery foods event. And unfortunately, I can't make it down there this weekend. So I've recruited my friend and fellow chili blogger and reviewer, Firehead Thomas Gately, who will report live from the show on Sunday. And I will present that recording for you next week in episode 23. So don't miss that. And speaking of Zest Fest, there's been a major new announcement. Zest Fest is going to have a spin-off event that's going to take place in Columbus, Ohio. This event is called Zest Fest Midwest. So the dates on that are June 28th through the 30th at the Ohio Expo Center. So right now there's nothing up at their website at zestfestmidwest.com. But maybe within the next few weeks, if you hop on over to that URL, they'll have a website up. But I just got the official word, the official dates yesterday, right before I record this. So this is kind of a save-the-date type reminder for everybody. So I'm excited about it. It's another show that I don't have to spend hundreds of dollars in airfare to just to attend it. Ohio is within easy driving distance of me here in the St. Louis, Missouri area. Of course, since it takes place in Columbus, Ohio, we can pretty much guess that Cayenne, of Cayenne's Fiery Foods, has big involvement in that, and that's a very good thing. So anyway, depending on when you're listening to this podcast episode, you can go over to zestfestmidwest.com, or you can just hop over to my website at scottrobertsweb.com, click the calendar link, scroll down to June 28th through the 30th, and as I get the details, I'll put them in there. I'll put them in the database, So there's going to be a link to the official website, a map to the Ohio State Fair Expo Center, but not only that event, but all the other major spicy events throughout the year. So if you haven't taken a look at my calendar page, be sure to do that. And lastly, I wanted to mention that there is a new podcast that I'm going to be the co-host of. The name of it is Two Guys Talking, the Following Podcast. Me and my cohort at Two Guys Talking, Mike Wilkerson, we're going to cover the new Fox TV show called The Following, starring Kevin Bacon. We're going to go week by week, episode by episode, and give you the goods and the bads of what we thought of the episode. Cover all the major plot points in classic Two Guys Talking style. So if you're a brand new fan of the program, The Following, or you're a fan of the weekly Firecast, I invite you to go over to twoguystalking.com, click the link, and subscribe today. So that's enough of me chit-chatting. Let's get to the weekly segments.
And now, the review of the week.
My review for this week is Kelly's Jelly's Habanero Pepper Jelly. As I said many times before, perhaps pepper jellies are one of the most underrated, least talked about, and underutilized applications of chili peppers when it comes to sauces and spreads and condiments. Many people just tend to forget them, or they tend to overlook them and instead focus on other things, but I happen to really love them. They're great in many ways you might not have thought of. Now, Kelly's Habanero Pepper Jelly really doesn't vary too much in looks and appearance from other pepper jellies. It comes in a 10.5-ounce jar, which is just a touch smaller than a standard salsa jar would be. Has a nice golden tone with little chunks of orange habaneros in there. It's thick, it's gelatinous, just like a regular jelly would be. Now, this did win a first place 2012 Scovie Award, so I was really interested in the flavor of it. Of course, the first time I took a taste of it, I spooned it out of a jar, and I was actually a little surprised. It was a lot more tart and bitter and sour than I anticipated it being. So there was a lot more of the vinegar taste right out of the chute. Of course, it being a habanero pepper jelly, it does not skimp on the heat at all. You eat enough of this, you'll get a nice burn up front. And another thing to kind of make note of is that a lot of pepper jellies will utilize fruit. It could be strawberries, raspberries, pineapple, peach. They kind of pair with the chili pepper flavor. This does not. It uses simply sugar, red and green bell peppers, and pectin to kind of give it that sweet flavor. So this is kind of on the opposite of the fruity end when it comes to pepper jellies. Now, of course, a no-brainer application for pepper jellies is putting it on breakfast foods, your English muffins, toast. And yeah, it does kind of have that sour kind of back end to it. I also like to mix pepper jellies with ice cream, especially mixing up with vanilla ice cream. This is not the best thing for that. I would much rather have a raspberry or strawberry or blackberry pepper jelly to use in those kind of frozen desserts. So it really didn't work all that well with that. But when it came to a glaze for chicken or pork ribs, that's when this really started to pop. That's where it kind of found its home. So a great deal of you probably wouldn't immediately think of putting this with meat, but I would suggest trying it with pork or chicken. Maybe even some lamb chops or even fish. So overall, it has good sufficient heat for chili heads. It may not be the best dessert pepper jelly out there, or the breakfast pepper jelly, I should add too. But pairing it with some white meats, some light meats, for your main entrees, for your proteins, I think this does the trick rather well. Now, heat on a scale of 1 to 5, with 0 being no heat at all, 5 being a nuclear blast furnace, let's just say the core of the sun. This would be somewhere around 2.5 to 3. But most importantly, on the taste, overall, when you combine the taste by itself and the taste on foods, I would give this 3 out of 5 stars. So if you're interested in this, you can visit Kelly Jelly's website at www.kellysjelly.com. Or you can just simply go to the show notes for this episode at weeklyfirecast.com or the numeral 2guystalking.com/firecast and click the link I will provide there. Now I'm going to debunk 6 of my most despised grilling and meat myths. And the following are some of the pet peeves that I have, some of the myths, some of the urban legends, just some of the untruths that are propagated throughout the whole barbecuing and grilling world. Well, as a matter of fact, throughout the whole cooking world, people kind of follow these old wives' tales and these little misconceptions. And, well, I want to cut through all the crap right now and dispel a lot of this. Now, some say that ignorance is bliss, but being unlearned about certain aspects of grilling and barbecuing does not make me a happy camper at all. So let's put an end once and for all about some of these meat and grilling myths. Myth number 1. Grilling and barbecuing are the same thing. False. Many novice backyard cooks use the terms interchangeably, but they're actually not one and the same. Grilling involves very fast cooking over a high heat, which is usually 300 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, and is optimal for steaks, seafood, burgers, and dogs. Barbecuing, on the other hand, is very slow cooking over low heat, usually between 225 and 275 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's considered the best way to cook larger pieces of meat like pork and beef ribs, pork shoulder, and beef brisket. But of course, it's not limited just to the large pieces of meat. Barbecuing can take several hours, all day, or even overnight, depending on the size of the meat and your cooking schedule. And as a lot of you barbecue purists can attest to, it often utilizes wood smoke for an additional smoky flavor to the meat. And I should also point out that the addition of a barbecue sauce or a barbecue seasoning does not qualify any meat as being true barbecue. So just because you oven bake something or throw something in a crock pot with barbecue sauce, nope, that's actually not true barbecue. Now, while cooks should be open to combine different techniques, methods, styles, and flavors as they see fit, they should be careful not to confuse the two words, grilling and barbecue. Myth number 2, searing a steak seals in the juices. This one is absolutely busted. Juices could still escape a fully blackened outside layer of meat. But that doesn't mean you have to stop searing steaks or fillets, as it can actually add a lot of good flavor. Now, when a meat's surface comes in contact with a super hot grill, proteins in the meat will combine with the sugars to trigger something called the Maillard reaction, which delivers the outside crust deliciousness. Myth number 3. The red or pink in barbecued meats means the meat is undercooked. Wrong. If the outside of the meat contains a rosy color, this is a natural, healthy reaction from it being smoked. This lovely pinkness is called a smoke ring and gives your food an extra dimension of flavor. Myth number 4. Pork that is slightly pink will make you ill or kill you. Well, this is usually untrue. While you should always cook pig meat to the temperature of 160 degrees Fahrenheit to kill off anything potentially harmful, a fully done pork roast could still have a slightly pink center. Myth number 5. The red liquid emanating from rare meat is blood. Busted. Meat, and in particular beef, is bled out before it reaches your grocery store or butcher shop display case or your restaurant table. So that blood-like semi-watery juice is actually called myoglobin, and it is an iron and oxygen binding protein found in the muscle tissue of animals and is completely harmless and safe to eat. Myth number 6. A barbecue fork is a proper tool for turning a steak. Well, not really. Stabbing a slab of meat with a fork only serves to puncture the meat and drain out the juices. Now, there can be exceptions to this. And I'm kind of a fan of the easy hooks, which are simply a long needle-like thing with a curved pointy end. Of course, that minimizes the hole you put in the meat, and you can easily pick it up, move the meat, flip it over, whatever you want to do with it. But for the most part, you don't want to poke a bunch of holes in your meat with the tines from a fork or prongs. Instead, turn your fillets, burgers, steaks, or ribs with tongs instead. And now's my call out to the audience. What about you? What kind of misconceptions and falsehoods about grilling and barbecuing and steak really get your goat? Simply go to number2guystalking.com/Firecast, click the simple web form on the left-hand side, and let me know if I missed any myths and which ones drive you nuts.
And now, the Fire Talkers interview.
Renee Rohrbach and Chef Ricky Sanders comprise the Madison Chocolatiers West, a food company based out of New Jersey that makes several things like brittles, truffles, chocolates, toffees, caramels, with some of the most exotic ingredients you could think of, including chili peppers. I recently had a chance to talk with them via Skype, and the following is that conversation. Good evening, Ricky and Renee. How are you two doing this evening?
Good. Good, Scott. How are you?
It couldn't be better. Glad to finally get you guys on.
I'm here, too.
Yeah. For everyone who is unfamiliar with Madison Chocolatiers West, why don't you give everybody a brief overview of how you started and what your company currently is today?
I started making chocolate approximately 13 years ago, Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
It was out of a need to find a way to make money and also to give gifts to family and friends for Valentine's Day.
Did you have any type of formal culinary training? Were you cooking professionally or as a hobby before this?
I don't have any culinary training. I learn as I go.
Mm-hmm.
I did bake for people. I did wedding cakes and desserts and things like that.
Okay, and then from that point on, did people encourage you? Did they say, hey, you're making some really great chocolates or confections, maybe you should start selling this? Did it get to that point?
That's exactly what happened with the Valentine's gifts. And so I found myself in a position where I had 2 young children and I needed to find a way. I was a stay-at-home mom. I needed to find a way to support them and also be here when they needed me.
Yeah.
So I did started out in the house, and it's grown from there. I met Rick 4 years ago, and he has culinary training, and he can tell you about that.
Why don't you go ahead and do that, Chef Ricky?
I went to Le Cordon Bleu in Portland, and then I did an internship with Moonstruck Chocolatiers. So that's where I kind of got hooked into chocolate, and then did a bakery. Worked in the bakery for a couple of years, beat myself up, and then I went to truck driving, and that's when I met Renee, and we were talking online and started talking about bacon and pistachios and chocolate. So that's kind of how we got hooked up.
Did you say bacon or baking?
Bacon.
Bacon and pistachios and chocolate. Well, a good starter conversation there. I know with me, it's like whenever I talk with women, if they have any love of food or, the whole culinary world, it's like, yeah, I know they're my type. So how you feel. Now, with Madison Chocolatiers West, I should ask you, where'd you guys get that name?
Well, the business was originally called the Madison Chocolatiers, and Rick being from the West Coast, we added the West on when he came into the business.
Did you know somebody with the name Madison?
Nope. That's a town that I live in.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. So when you formed your company, what were some of the products that you were creating at the time?
When I started, I was doing the classics pretty much, but then I would twist them up. Like turtle is typically pecans, caramel, and chocolate, and I would do it with salted cashews instead. So I did little twists on the classics, and then I would experiment with different flavors. When I cooked my fruits to make truffles, I would add in spices. And then when Rick came into the business, we just totally went crazy.
And then go ahead and describe this craziness.
Oh, we searched all over the place for unusual ingredients. We do, for instance, a black garlic truffle that we call jinju. And it's a Korean black garlic. The garlic's imported from Korea. And that particular one is best used as a component to an entree, like a fish, lobster, and then also with a white chocolate rum sauce.
And at this time, did you find that some of the odder concoctions that you had come up with, did you win over crowds with this stuff, or did they kind of go for more of the traditional classic stuff that you had made?
That's been a teaching process, educating people on, there's more to chocolates than just the average creams and nuts and caramels. So we kind of went out there, like the caviar truffles. We sampled them out in Atlantic City. Actually, people were pretty wowed by it.
Now, how did you sell your stuff at first?
I used to sell in hairdressers and at local shows around Christmas time, Easter. Not so much in the summer. Doesn't hold up well in the summer.
I wonder why. Especially in this part of the country. I don't know how it is there. Yeah, I've had people mail me stuff, chocolates and that in the mail. One time I remember somebody from the Pacific Northwest mailing me a bunch of chocolate. And I guess they thought, the rest of the country was, 60 degrees and rainy. But it's like, no, here in Missouri, it gets, 90, 95 in the summer. And it was just a big liquidy mess by the time I got it.
We do a lot of shipping in the summertime, but we use coolers and ice packs.
It's all in how you pack it.
Yeah. By the time I first met you guys, I think it was ZestFest 2012.
Yep.
Right.
Then you had created so many products, I don't even remember them all. And a lot of them weren't spicy or chili pepper related.
Right.
But the thing is, just the imagination that went into things, the exotic ingredients, just everything you told me, and then everything that I tasted just completely wowed me. Now, I'm the type of person, I'm not a huge milk chocolate fan, but I love the whole idea of sweet and heat. It's one of the biggest things. It's one of my favorite types of flavor combinations. How did you guys stumble upon the whole concept of sweet and heat?
Go ahead.
That was we had gone to,
You'd gone to Florida.
I had gone to Florida to visit my daughter in college, and she took me to a store that had spices and teas, and I had picked up some of the ingredients in the more peppers, and really didn't know all that much about them. So I guess the first product that we did with the heat was our molten lava rocks, which there's 5 different kinds of peppers in the pepper blend. Then we kind of went from there.
The Pirate Spit Me Arse Bar.
Pirate Spit Me Arse Bar. My daughter does a lot of the artwork, the label artwork too. Then one of our friends had asked us if we had ever heard of the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens chili pepper. I can't remember the name of the show now.
The Brooklyn Botanical Chili Pepper Festival, I believe it's called.
Festival, yeah. We looked into it and we decided we wanted to try it. And that's when we came up with the sweet burn butter toffee, which everybody calls their crack candy.
I think you have several, I don't want to say several crack candies. Well, one's compared to like heroin, one to meth, whatever's addictive. Yeah, I think you have a version of each of them. There's a few that I wanted to talk about. One I wanted to start off with was the I have a hot date, or is it pronounced I have a hot date because it's uses the habanero. How did you come up with that idea?
When I was little, my mother used to make dates stuffed with peanut butter wrapped in bacon in the oven, and she cooked them in the oven, and I always loved those. And I was like, well, I can just leave the bacon out and just dip the peanut butter stuffed date in dark chocolate. And someone had asked us if we could do it spicy or with peppers in it. So we made the pepper peanut butter and with the chocolate habaneros and did it that way. Those are a big hit. We didn't know what to call them, so Ken Alexander helped us out with that one.
It works, yeah, with the date, and it's phenomenal tasting. And you know what? That is actually not some of my favorite stuff that you had. Now, you mentioned the lava rocks.
Right.
And then you have another version, the molten lava rocks. Does that use the ghost pepper?
That has Scotch bonnet, teal, chipotle, cayenne, and then a long list of spices. The white ash molten lava rocks have the same pepper blend, but with the ghost added to it as well.
Okay, that's the one I was thinking of. There is the little thing, the scorpion stinger caramels.
Yes.
Why don't you tell me a little about those?
Well, that was Tim Bader had sent us a whole bunch of powders to try out after talking with them online, and that one just I was making caramels one day, and it just kind of struck me to put them in there, and
they were born.
And are you guys fans of really hot stuff, or do you pretty much make them for the heat seekers out there?
The scorpion peppers are a little hot for me, but I do use some of it. Tim's garlic and scorpion pepper powder blend I like it on like roasted corn. We're not super chili people.
I'm definitely not.
Well, not everybody is.
Hey, Scott.
What's that?
She said she's such a wimp that she couldn't. I made a batch of it, and I was talking to Tim on the phone downstairs, and she comes running down the stairs, just screaming and yelling and crying and cussing and yelling at me. And she's like, I just took a little itty bitty piece.
Oh God, I had tears for like 20 minutes. It was awful. And the two of them were laughing at me. They thought it was funny. Like, that's way too hot. You have to cool that down.
It's always great entertainment. Did you have milk handy?
No, at that time, who knew about that?
Well, now you know next time you're tempted to take a little piece.
Yeah.
We're going to take a little break right now, but we'll return for the second half of this interview right after these messages.
Are you following the following podcast? There's never been a mission more critical. Join the Two Guys Talking following now by accessing thefollowingpodcast.com and become one of the following today. Followingpodcast.com. Thefollowingpodcast.com.
Having a friendly, relatable voice can make all the difference in your marketing efforts. Let Scott Roberts' voiceover be that voice. I can give you the goods, whatever your need is, whether it be for commercials, podcasts, voicemail phone systems and on-hold messages, business presentations, websites, audiobooks, and more. If you require a personable, real, down-to-earth voiceover artist, then look no further. You can find out more at scottrobertsvoice.com.
Two Guys Talking is proud to be using Heil Thin microphones inside their podcast studios in St. Charles, Missouri, just outside St. Louis. Thin mics from Heil Sound aren't just providing great audio quality, they're fun. With glistening blue LEDs in each, they are true technological centerpieces and help Two Guys Talking make the mark inside the podcast industry. Are you familiar with Heil microphones? Check out all the details now at heilsound.com. That's HEIL sound.com. And learn why Two Guys Talking uses and succeeds with the best microphone technology. Heil Sound, laying down the best audio tracks at the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
For a second chance.
Two Guys Talking Poker.com. I'm Vic Porcelli, that's one guy. And Big Slick, a.k.a. Andy Kazin, he's the other guy. Hiya.
Hey, that's Mick.
You know, Andy and I catch some hot hands when we're playing poker. But if you want to talk about hot sauces, chili peppers, any food with real heat, it's Scott Roberts and the Weekly Firecast on the Two Guys Talking Podcast Network.
And we are back, and here's the second half of the interview. And kind of ramping up to some of my favorite products of yours, you have the Not Your Grandma's caramel sauce, which is a chocolate habanero caramel sauce.
Now that one I like.
I think anybody who would take a taste of that would just be instantly addicted. That's your crack or your heroin right there. How'd you come up with that product?
Nothing we do is by accident. I don't know. We play off of each other very well, and I think we never really wanted to get into the hot sauce world as far as what other people do that have hot sauces. So in keeping with the sweet or the confectionery end of it, we decided to try to make a caramel sauce. And Rick does all the caramels. I don't do any of the caramels. I do more of the truffles, the brittles, the toffees. Those are more what I'm good at cooking than the caramel sauce. So we wanted it mild enough that most people could enjoy it, but we still wanted people to be able to taste all the components, the caramel, the chocolate, and subsequently the peppers.
I think you guys did a phenomenal job with that. And then you have a couple of newer ones. The one is the Java Stinger caramel. It's extremely hot, even by my definition of it. I can't use a whole lot of it because of the scorpion pepper in it, but the combination of the coffee, which to me is a really distinctive bitter, but really unique kind of flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And then I think the crack of all crack things you have, cinnamon cayenne caramel. Is that what you're going to call it? Or is it cayenne cinnamon caramel?
C3.
C3. Okay. Well, anyway, it has those 3 C's in it. Let me tell you, when is a gallon jug version going to be available of that?
We didn't even really release it yet.
Well, that's true. That's true.
You were one of the first to have it.
A preview of that.
I don't know. The few people that have had it, they're like ask the same question.
I don't know. We might have to do a Kickstarter to get those gallon jugs.
I'd be first in line with that. Of course, for everyone who's listening to this who didn't listen to my year-end episode, that one for my best spicy dessert product. And I often tell people that I know something is going to be an absolute winner of a product if I'm just about out of the product before I'm able to do a review of it. I will open something up and taste it. It could be a sauce and think, that's really good. And I'll keep tasting it and sampling it. Before you know it, I was almost out of the stuff before I was able to do a write-up.
What did you try it on? Curious.
I tried it on some apple pie and some vanilla ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
And with me, I'm thinking, I better hurry up and have a formal review product and, take pictures and everything like that. But the stuff is so good. I just almost ate the whole jar in one sitting. So, yeah, the gallon stuff, it's probably good that you guys don't have that because I would be getting really fat from that. Obviously, you do the whole spicy, sweet and heat angle. What are some of your favorites that you make? You have all kinds of confections and...
Like the Szechuan button flour?
The sensation truffle.
Oh, yeah. Describe the one with the flour.
Or Szechuan button flour, and then it's got a lime truffle to accentuate what the flour does by releasing its alcohol and open up all your taste buds. So when you bite into the chocolate, it actually kind of explodes. They call it Mother Nature's Pop Rocks.
We love to give that one out to people, unsuspecting people.
Well, I think you guys told me kind of what would happen, and it's still just like that little unexpected burst. It's like, wow. Well, how'd you guys stumble upon that? Is it just something you read about, something you kind of knew about?
We were doing going to do a show in Cleveland, and someone had called us or got in touch with us and said, I have these flowers. Would you be interested in trying to do something with them? And I had been trying to get a hold of those flowers for 2 years, but because there's so few growers in the United States, they wouldn't sell them to me unless I went through greengrocer. And I wasn't obviously looking for hundreds of thousands of them at the time. I wanted to experiment with them. Mm-hmm. So as soon as she had gotten in touch with us, I was like, yep, send those over here right now. Overnight will be good. Because the show was coming up in, I think it was either 2 or 3 weeks. So it didn't give us a lot of time to actually come up with a product.
But
we did it. We don't usually have to mess around in the kitchen for too long before we hit the right flavor profile and combinations of what we want to do or what we want the end product to be.
And you kind of mentioned it before, you kind of play off of each other. Do you guys constantly have new ideas that you're coming up with in your head and you're bouncing them off of each other, or do you have like a specific plan of attack, thinking, we need to sell this thing or that thing?
No plan. Nope. We fly by the seat of our pants.
We could be in a store and see an item and automatically start putting other components together with it, and before we walk away from there, we already know what the product's going to be and what it's going to taste like.
So we love to go to the big food shows to find, in search of ingredients, fancy food show, the restaurant shows, and also to keep up on what the food trends are.
Kind of going along that, where do you see yourselves going in 5 years or 10 years?
Retiring? No.
Well, hopefully you guys won't give up the company before then. It has to press on. One thing I have to say is, even in the whole fiery foods world, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Lots of people have created the combination of chocolate and chili peppers, time and time again. Some very unique stuff, some very good stuff.
Right.
I think the uniqueness and just the quality of what you guys come up with, I don't believe I've ever tasted anything like this before.
Oh. Well, thank you. We pride ourselves on our quality, and that's something, no matter where our company goes, we'll never compromise I mean, I can't really see us going mass market. We're really not a mass market kind of company. We don't do that kind of product. And I think when small companies do go mass market, it just loses so much in the translation. And that's not something that we ever want to see happen as far as our quality goes. Mm-hmm. And it kind of locks you up on having ingenuity into what you want to do. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Perfect sense.
You can edit that part.
No, makes perfect sense. I'll leave this part in, though. As far as shows, events, farmers markets, where are you guys going to be appearing in the next few months?
We'll be at Zest Fest again this month. We'll be at K. John's North Market next month.
Okay, I'll be there.
Excellent.
After that,
we'll bring your gallon jug of C3.
Thank you very much. I'll be expecting that now. Well, for those who wish to check out your products online and purchase, where can they go to do that?
MadisonChocolatier.com or on Facebook.
Madison Chocolatiers West.
The Madison Chocolatiers West Facebook store. Or give us a call.
Just like all the other links, I put in the podcast, I put them in the show notes. So everyone could just look at the show notes for the show and click away and, browse and shop to your heart's content. Well, Renee and Ricky, did you guys have any last-minute things you wanted to say? Anything you wanted to mention?
Yeah, the Not Your Grandma's Caramel Sauce. We actually won a silver award in the America's semifinals for the International Chocolate Awards.
That's run by the Academy of Chocolates in London. Mm-hmm. This year they did separate divisions. They did North and South America together. They did London. They did Italy. And I think there was one more. Spain or Canada? Canada was a separate category. In the North and South American awards, we took the silver for the Not Your Grandma's Caramel Sauce. So we were really proud.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Very well deserved. Yeah, great product.
Thank you.
Yeah, reviews of some of your stuff I should be putting on the website in another couple weeks. That's the C3. By the way, when is that going to be available on your website?
I think it's on. Is it on there now? It's not on there.
Yeah, it is.
It is on there.
It's on the
okay.
It's on there for pre-order. We just finally got the labels. Oh yeah, and I know you're going to kill us on the label. But that's okay. We'll take it from you.
The product will more than make up for it. Don't worry. So awesome. People can look for that. Look for the other types of sweet crack and heroin and meth and whatever other drugs you can think of.
Sensation.
I'm sorry for all those drug comparisons, but I think you guys brought that up first, so I'm safe.
Oh, we're used to it now.
Anyway, guys, thanks a lot for getting on the Skype chat line with me tonight.
Yeah,
it's been
great.
fun.
Thanks, Scott.
I will see you guys soon.
All right.
We'll look forward to seeing you next month.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And if you're interested in learning more about Madison Chocolatiers West, many fine creations, simply go to MadisonChocolatier.com. Or you can just go to weeklyfirecast.com, look for episode number 22, and click the link in the show notes. And believe me, they have so many phenomenal and unique products. If you love all kinds of exotic yet sweet flavors, they have them there. So again, thanks to Renee and Ricky for that great interview. They're a couple of great people to keep an eye out for. So we've come to the point in the show where I am going to list the retweeters and the resharers. And if you don't know how this works, well, here's the scoop. Anytime I post a link to a new episode of the Weekly Firecast, either on Facebook or on Twitter, if you reshare the link or retweet the link, I will mention your name or your company's name in the very next episode. Obviously, it's a great way to get some more promotion from me, but it could also be a good way to get your name out to potentially thousands of subscribers to the Weekly Firecast. So if you share the love, you can get some good exposure this way. So these are the people who shared the previous episode, episode 21, on Twitter. There were The Spice Boys, and their Twitter handle is @TheSpiceBoys. There was Capsicums. Their Twitter handle is @Capsicums_FR. There was Fired Chilies, and their Twitter handle is @FiredChilies. And the word chilies is spelled CHILLIES. Sean Mundell, his Twitter handle is @TGuzzler. There was Salsa Me Crazy, whose Twitter handle is @SalsaMeCrazy. And then the word crazy, it's spelled K-R-A-Z-Y instead of a C. There was Danny Orozco, whose Twitter handle is @HotSauceFiend. There was Mike from Body Slam BBQ, whose Twitter handle is @BodySlamBBQ. Ernie Rupp, whose Twitter handle is @QSYourDaddy, or you can just read it Q's Your Daddy. There's Jeff H., whose Twitter handle is @YourManJeff. There was Ladybird Hot Sauce, whose Twitter handle is @LadybirdFriends. James Haskell, whose Twitter handle is @JDHaskell. And then there was John Knoll, whose Twitter handle is @JKnoll4. And then the reshares on Facebook. There's both Marsha Fox and her company, BBQ Hooks and More, who shared it. Thank you very much, Marsha. There was Jim Duffy at Refining Fire Chilies, and Firehead Thomas Gately. And if you haven't listened to that previous episode, episode 21, as I mentioned at the start of this podcast, I talked to Zestfest Greg Bagarozzi about the event that's going on right this weekend. So if you're listening, the weekend starting Friday, January 25th, 2013, Zestfest is the big, huge event going on in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But then in episode 21, I also talked to John Rosati of Rippin' Red Sauces. And since we are in the heart of chicken wing season, buffalo wing season, the playoffs are done, Super Bowl's set to go here in another week, so I know buffalo wings is one of the foremost things on my mind. But anyway, John Rosati has some great wing sauces from Rippin' Red. And just a couple episodes ago, I had talked to Lynn Kozarski of Blackwood's Wing Sauce. And to hear my interview with Lynn, just go back a couple episodes to episode 19 of the Weekly Firecast. You can hear him talk about his 4 excellent wing sauces that he makes himself under the Blackwoods name. I want to thank everybody who's listened and downloaded the Weekly Firecast. If you love what you hear, you know of other chili heads who might also dig a fiery foods and barbecue-oriented podcast, please spread the word. And if you're on iTunes, feel free to rate and review the podcast. And believe me, it's all appreciated. So anyway, that wraps up another installment of the Weekly Firecast. God bless, and remember, keep it burning.
This has been the Weekly Firecast. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast via iTunes or at the official website at scottrobertsweb.com/weeklyfirecast. The Weekly Firecast is part of the Two Guys Talking podcast network. For more information on other great Two Guys Talking programming, you can go to twoguystalking.com. That's the number 2, guystalking.com. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep it burning.
And then reshares on Facebook. There's both Marsha Fox and her company, BBQ Hooks and More, who shared it. Thank you very much, Jan. Thank you very... I'm thinking of Brady Bunch here. Marsha, Jan. Thank you very much, Marsha.